Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet?
I love people as I meet them one by one. People are just wonderful as individuals. You see the whole...
My great aspiration, my greatest ambition is to be so good. Now, in that way, I'm tiresome, as I suppose, to live with, because I want to be a fantastic human being.
I am the greatest. We're not disputing that, Cassius, but how does Sonny Liston feel about it? He can't feel but one way, and let's take everything I say and like it. Because February the 25th, I'm going to take back my job. I'm the champ. He's no champ. He's a tramp.
When you see men fall, don't laugh. Learn. Learn. Because you're on your way up. And the things that tempt people to fall, you and I are not free from that temptation.
Yo, what up? Happy Monday. Glory, praise, and honor to the Most High. Appreciate you guys for being here. I hope all is well. I hope your weekend was abundant. I hope your day was fruitful. And I just want to say thank you for being here with us this evening as we give our flowers to one of the oldest women to walk the face of this earth. Not only to walk the face of this earth, but to have survived the Tuscan massacre, Black Wall Street. I got Rob in the building. I got Sydney in the building. I have two clips that I'm going to play. The first one is the woman of the hour giving her speech. The second video is a quick breakdown to what happened to all of these successful businesses. What happened to all of these strong, Black, educated men and women, and how it affected everyone. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring Rob up, I'm gonna bring Sydney up, and it's a cause for celebration. So do me a solid, repost, share, let the people know that we're on. This is especially important to me. So let's have a little discord about it. What's going on, brother?
What's happening? What's happening then?
What's the word? What's the word?
I'm liking your chain. I'm liking that chain right there.
Yeah.
Right?
Shout out to Timu. You know what I'm saying? You know, somebody on TikTok tried to come for me, and I'm like, you know what? I'm proud of my $3 chain. Hell yeah.
Hey.
Ain't no way in the world I'm about to go out here and spend $250,000 on a chain. Are you out of your mind?
For real.
I'm not gonna lie, some of the cheap stuff can actually last longer. Like as long as they use like sterling or like stainless steel, they can actually be better than some of the expensive ones.
Absolutely. And I don't break out, so that's a plus too. So even if you want to call it cheap, my neck don't turn green or none of that. So,
and joke's on you, he has like $400 more than you do for my real chain.
Exactly. I can get all the eggs I want. Y'all tripping.
Yeah, that's dope.
But how y'all feeling though? How was y'all weekends? I know it's a lot. I kind of sprung this up. I already had it in a tuck. I was going to do this last week, but then I moved it again, and then I said I'm gonna move it again, and then I was like, oh wait, they want to be on here. All right, cool. So I'll just push it back to actual Monday and do it. But you know,
now that's the type of stuff I like though.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that you rarely ever hear people talk about, which is sad to me.
Right.
But
Thank you.
It's extremely sad to me. I'm very disappointed, not only in our culture itself, but just in the general public. Nobody really seems to bring this up at all. And I did a reaction video to the full length story behind it, which really made me feel a little more.
I thought I was on mute. My bad. I had to get my fan because it is so stuffy right now. We had a tropical system go by our coast, and so it feels like Texas right now. So I had to run to my room to grab the fan to put it right next to me because it's just so warm in this room. But yeah, I forgot to mute. My bad.
It's all good. You know how many times I done screwed up with my button. So
I know I took my studio pads down. It's ugly.
I didn't notice. I like your poster though.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't record. I used to record in the house off GarageBand, but I'm blessed now. I got 2 homes now. I could go to the record, so I'm smart.
Talk your stuff. Hold on. Let me.
Right. No, but I like this stuff though. This is I'm a Black History person. I studied for I think that saved my life, man. I started when I first started in college, I used to, when I go to the bookstore to get my books for the classes, I would run into the African American history section. And I would see all this stuff like, wait, what's going on? So every semester for 10 years straight, really, I would use some of that book money to buy Black history books. So I studied 10 years straight to get my mind back right.
Let me ask you a question. How important is Black history to you?
For our culture, it's the most important thing. We need it. It's a necessity, and I wish that more people would get into it because it changed my life, and it made me understand a lot of what's going on, why it's going on, and it made me understand the thought patterns that I was having, and why I could say even straight up, it's the low self-esteem I had, the desire to do criminal activities, the desire to do nothing, stay in one place, thinking that was okay. It changed all of that, and it took 10, 15 years of constant studying, so much so that I had to stop reading it for a while because I started getting angry, and my wife would be tripped like, "Yo, you can't think about that every day," because it got to a point where I couldn't even watch news. I couldn't even watch I can't watch a movie without going crazy. Like, look at that, look at it. There's something that's going on, So I had to kind of like fall back, but it saved my life. I'll tell you that.
Sydney, let me ask you a question. Do you think that this particular story, which we know is not a story, but do you think that it would have a larger impact on the entire community if everyone really took time to actually invest in the criminal activity that took place here? A lot of us lack empathy. A lot of us don't have the ability to understand other culture struggles or their hardships, and I think that's one of the main reasons why our view is so skewed. You looking in from a different space, how do you feel overall about this particular story, about the message, about the impact behind it?
It's funny because I initially was going to answer this question. Like, before you said that, I actually didn't even consider where my perspective is coming from to a lot of people. I forget that my experience is different from other people, despite my knowledge of everything that's happened. I don't know how. Oh wait, give me one moment. I have to open my door.
Gotcha. Yeah. Just so y'all know. Oh, you wanted to say something? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm listening.
I was just gonna say, the actual documentary is well over an hour, but I'll tell you this: it's well worth the watch. If you've never seen it, it is well worth the watch. You can even just listen to it while you're working or in the gym. But for us specifically, you would definitely want to check this out. If not for anything else other than it might actually help you reshape and rewire some of the thinking that you have already. I'll turn the mic back over to you if you want to pick up.
Yeah. A lot of people, or the people that watch the stream, know that I love science. But my other passion is history. I've always been drawn to history since I was little. Honestly, I could say they both, like, I've been interested my whole life. And I grew up reading books about girls from kids from historical time periods. I liked the American Girl series. I liked the My America series. And if you don't know what those are, they cover American Girl covers American girls in different time periods throughout the country. I'm very self-explanatory, but they're very key parts of history. I'm sure you could all probably guess which points of history. The other one is a little bit more diverse, but the same idea. It's different children and their experiences in different parts of American history. I've always found it interesting because there's especially before the modern technological era, there's a lot of psychology behind human civilization and interaction. There, a lot of people that have gotten sanitized history don't know how far back racism actually goes. This isn't a modern problem that just developed because propaganda and war and countries, we're all split up and we have different ideals, and like, it's not. There are very deep rooted things inside of us that make us have these biases. And the thing is racism isn't like, oh, some people are charismatic and some people are more introverted. It's not like some people are just more racist and some people are less racist. It's very much a mindset. It's almost the same as habit formation, or how you talk to people, or just how you live your life, because it's essentially intertwined with how you treat people, what you watch, what you wear, what you represent. Because if you, especially now, our ideology leaks into everything. We wear it on us, we talk about it, we put it online, and it's, I think that's why we're having such a problem today with it, is because it's so visible. And we are at the point where most modernized countries have allowed both genders to have rights, or all genders to have rights. But there are still people that have not gotten past the idea that we can coexist differently, because that's really the root of racism, is people don't want to be subjected to somebody else's lifestyle. If they look at something and it makes them feel uncomfortable, they automatically want to separate themselves from that thing. And because there are cultural and tendencies, like people of different groups will typically have more of a like their identity centered around specific things, a lot of cultural habits that have been developed over generations, and if you encounter a group of people that is doing things that to you is weird, and you are socialized to be closed off or aggressive, or because it's also upbringing. If your parent is teaching you to be kind to others, is teaching you to be tolerant of other people and to be patient and fair, you will be more tolerant and patient and fair when you're older. You're going to be less racist because you are going to be more open and accepting of different lifestyles. So it's a whole complicated web of culture and upbringing, psychology, and history. So that's why it's important to learn history, because it's very much it's how we understand ourselves and how we can change our own futures, what works and what doesn't, and how you can create communities that actually get along and don't try and do things to each other.
I like what you said. It's definitely got a lot of psychology behind it, a lot of I don't want to say grooming, but if all you know is screaming and yelling and look at that looks ugly, that looks nasty,
or shutting people out, that's a huge component of racism, is shutting people out, shunning them, not wanting to do with them, because as soon as you stop interacting with another person, you don't have the opportunity to understand who they are underneath. You're not going to find any similarities because you're not giving yourself the chance to understand them and where they're coming from. Because whether we like to admit it or not, every person across the world basically has the same fundamentals. Most people across the board want well-being for their friends and family members around them, for their community. They have a sense of pride for the place that they live, the country that they come from, the culture that they come from. And people just want the right to express themselves and be themselves, and be comfortable. That's what pretty much most people, like, there are some people that just want everything, but for the most part, most people just want to be themselves. And that's kind of where racism comes in, because there's going to be people that are like, no, you can't be yourself. You have to be like this because that other stuff is weird and you don't like that. And so that's really where it comes from. And unfortunately, when you allow it to fester, like we've seen in organizations, which I'm not going to mention, but I'm sure we can all understand who we're talking about, they have worked together into an organization that actively bounces those ideas back and forth. It's an echo chamber. They don't have any outsiders coming in, introducing themselves and being like, hey, I'm actually what you hate, but I wanted to introduce myself so you can get to know me. Like, people don't do that anymore. There's so much fear and like miscommunication that people don't understand either side. I've just, out of my own curiosity and need to understand, I have explored the psychology of group with the N-word, like the 4-letter N-word. I had to clarify. The reason there are a lot of similarities between how those individuals get to where they are, how white supremacists become who they are. And so I think there is a way to fix this problem. It's just we have to bring people back together to see their commonalities, to see that we do want the same things for each other. We just have to get over the lifestyle issue.
I was going to say, before we go any deeper into the rabbit hole, let me bring up the first clip. The first one, I want to go ahead and give her flowers, and then I'll come back to the actual story. They pretty much compressed it to like a solid 2 minutes, but they did a good job with it. So let's hear from the woman herself.
2 weeks ago, I celebrated my 107th birthday. On May 31st in 21, I went to bed at my family's home in Greenwood, neighbors of Tulsa. The neighborhood I felt asleep in that night was rich, not just in terms of wealth, but in culture, community, heritage, and my family had a beautiful home. The night of the massacre, I was awakened by my family. My parents and 5 siblings were there. I was told we had to leave, and that was it. I will never forget the violence of the white mob when we left our home. I still see black men being shot, black bodies lying in the street. I still smell smoke and see fire. I still see black businesses being burned. I still hear airplanes flying overhead. I hear the screams. I have lived through the massacre every day. When my family was forced to leave Tulsa, I lost my chance of an education. I never finished school past the 4th grade. I have never made much money in my country. For 70 years, the city of Tulsa and its Chamber of Commerce told us that the massacre didn't happen, like we didn't see it with our own eyes. We lost everything that day, our homes, our churches, our newspapers, our theaters, our lives. Greenwood represented all the best of what was possible for black people in America and for all the people. No one cared about us for almost 100 years. We and our history have been forgotten, washed away, I am a 107-year-old and have never been seen justice. I pray that one day I will.
107 years old, and she still got foresight. She still can articulate. For someone who only had a fourth grade education, she got more common sense than half of the population out here. I'm telling you that whole story, man, and she's just one of many who testified to something that was just a lie. A lie turned into a lynching, pretty much. They went out of their way to eliminate anybody and everyone who was out there. They didn't care who you was. The stories that I've heard of men hiding as their families were getting shot and killed in the house. The houses are getting set on fire, and they have to hide and watch everything get burnt down to the ground. Them getting executed, thrown into holes like nobody. And then, I mean, they could say it was all over a lie, but we know it was more than that. It was more to it. And a lot of it is based on what you said. You know, for all the ignorance that I see in 2025, lack of discipline, lack of moral structure, lack of integrity. What Black Wall Street showed me is once upon a time, we were all on the same accord at some point. Everybody wasn't trying to defeat the other person or outshine the other person. It was more, and it was available to everybody. But now it's like you can't have anything without somebody being angry at you for having something that they didn't work for, or because jealousy, or because envy, or because you were programmed and told that you were supposed to hate this person just because they tried to bury this whole thing. They didn't want nobody talking about it. They tried to erase it from history books. They didn't want nothing to be reminded of who these people were. As you can see here, they didn't even want her to speak on it. They didn't want her to remember it. As far as they were concerned, that never happened. What are you talking about?
Hey, we also got to remember too, that was just one. We had the one down here, the Ocoee massacre in Florida. I want to say that was in like the 1930s, 1940s. We had the one in St. Louis. We had the one in I want to say they call it Seneca Valley in Central Park. How they destroyed that whole village. There was a whole thriving village in New York City, which is now Central Park.
Right.
So it was more Chicago. You know what I'm saying? There's a bunch of them. We focus on that one because that was like a center point, but that wasn't also, that wasn't like the only one. Because even down here, remember the movie Rosewood? That was based on a town in Florida that had the most black millionaires per capita, and that was burnt down as well. So they happen all over the country, from New York to Cali. and each time it was based on an excuse, and what it was is it's psychological and economic. And I watched a little post this morning that said we're going back to that now because the rhetoric that the people in office right now are using is saying you're not struggling because of me, you're struggling because of them. All your struggles is coming because of them, not to the point. It's so crazy now too, because the thing that bothers me about a lot of this stuff now is that we could say, hey, we know what's going on. We've seen it. We read the books. We saw the and we continue to do the same thing. But what I do understand about that is that we have been programmed and desensitized to this stuff since the womb. So much so that it's normal now. So even you could see that guy is convicted of all these felonies. He's a convicted felon, and felons cannot vote. I'm gonna keep coming back to that. His friends were doing all of this and all of that, and were being let go on multiple occasions to where they have criminal charges and all of this, and they will make a regular person feel guilty for something that they did when they are right in our face playing. And I find some good in it though at the same time, because now you know this stuff was fake. You know what I'm saying? Like even when people say, oh, this is democracy, this is America, this is the best, that word is a concept that people have no clue about. That all it means is that majority of the people with the resources make all of the decisions for the rest of the people. And in this country, you have 1 to 10% of people who are influencing the decision making of millions of people, to where now you could do it in plain sight and it don't even matter. We got all this knowledge at our fingertips, and then stuff is happening. Because even we was looking at not to get off topic, but just now, yesterday or whatever, in Boulder, Colorado, this man is sitting here with these Molotov cocktails, whatever. Nobody stops him. He interacted with all these officers.
Didn't he also have like a flamethrower, some sort of like?
Right. So nobody. We more on tape them than, you know what I'm saying. But back to the Black Wall Street. It speaks to the redlining, where they wouldn't thrive in neighborhoods, hospitals, schools, stores, and when they began to thrive, they put the highway through it. When the town was booming off the industries, they took the industries out, took the factories away, moved them to the burbs. And then when they got it popping again, they moved the jobs back and then gentrified the same areas. Because I'm from Harlem, New York City, and the Harlem I know was black. We were struggling. There was like one rich area called Stravers Road. That's probably about 3 blocks, but it was nothing but people of color. And I had a judge one time. We was on a cruise, and he was a older Jewish fella, and he had a real thick New York accent. And he would always say something to me when we were sitting at the table. And I said, well, you sound like you're from New York. And he said, yeah, I am from New York, back from the 30s and 40s. And I said, well, he said, you from New York? I said, yeah, I'm from Harlem. He said, man, you don't even know Harlem. I said, what you talking about? He said, Harlem wasn't even black before. I was there when the Jews owned Harlem. I was there when the Italians owned Harlem. He said, you don't know nothing. Harlem was all white. And I couldn't get that in my head, because for the 16 years I was there, it was all color. Colombians, Cubans, Jamaicans, Dominicans, Africans, Americans of African descent. And when he said that, right around 1990, when Bill Clinton came in, they began to gentrify Harlem. And while everybody was going crazy, oh, he bought in Home Depot, he bought in Old Navy, they kicked all of the mom and pop stores out that had their own businesses. And then also they took all of that real estate and doubled the price so that their people could come in and have easy access to go downtown. And Harlem hasn't been the same since. So when you go back to Black Wall Street right now, it's not necessarily, okay, we're gonna go in and kill 100 people, 200 people, but they are still able to systematically destroy everything of relevance that people are creating. And then now too, it's not even just happening for Black folk, it's happening in everybody's community now. And that's what's, I think right now, that's like the icing on the cake.
The other like added part to it, they gentrify by putting in these high-rise apartments that nobody can afford. And so it just artificially raises the price of the area for the homes in the area. And so nobody can live in the area at all, because then the apartments that nobody's living in are making the houses more expensive. It's wild.
And that's most major cities right now. It's happening in every major city. People are being priced out. And that's crazy, because I was just talking to my lady about we was looking at, they're building a new gas station here, Buc-ee's, and she was like, well, they're gonna bring job. And I was like, $15 hours a job, $15 an hour, that ain't finna help. And she was like, well, it beats getting nothing. But I'm like, they got it rigged to where if you make too much money at $15 an hour, you can't get food stamps. So it's
and
like,
they also limit how many people they hire because of that too, because they're not going to want to pay 3 people $15 an hour, so they're just going to do like 1 or 2 if they can and overwork them.
Exactly, and it's corporate, and she's like, well, it's better than nothing. But I'm like, I beg to differ, because if you make too much, you lose your Medicaid. If you make to where it costs you more to go to work than it is to work, and they get mad at people like, why you don't want to work? Like, what you know what I'm saying? If it costs me more to work, like I'm gonna. But it's unfortunate, because the mentality a lot of times that comes with is that struggle, and then they spread it around. So this stuff is happening as we speak today, and we have all of this knowledge, and to a certain extent, we can't stop nothing. And well, one is because we don't band together, but then 2, again, resource-wise, this stuff has been broken out of us from the womb.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that there was a plan, and they're pretty much doing an exceptional job at executing it. Look, I must be honest, I don't point the finger at nobody but those who refuse to seek knowledge for themselves. As far as the ignorance that stems from the results that we're getting, that's something completely different. But when you got the information, and I've said it before, all these libraries, all these books, all these authors that's giving you everything, and you don't pick the book up, you don't read, you don't investigate, you don't do the research, the only thing you're doing is robbing yourself. You're limiting your opportunities to expand, to branch out, to break away from anything that might be misconceived as being honest or notable or right in the eyes of your surroundings. You're cheating yourself out of an experience to collaborate, to love, to flourish and build with other people because you're still it's like you want to stay on a pacifier all your life. I remember my my folks always sucked their thumb, and they would suck their thumb. They had to literally start putting like hot sauce and peppers, and they had to literally start doing little things, put it on their thumb so they wouldn't put their thumb in their mouth anymore. Because like if you do it too much, you're gonna mess up your teeth, and it's gonna be So
I had one of those when I was a kid. It was a thing that went around my hand, and then it like encapsulated, or it was my fingers, and so it like held my fingers together in this like tube thing that went around my wrist, so I couldn't take it off.
So you know what I'm talking about. And that's a lot of us. That's a lot of people right now to this day. You'll read the Quran, and you'll read up on your local gossip, who Cardi B's sleeping with, and who Ray J dealing with, and what's going on with P Diddy. But when it comes to this assimilation and this gentrification and how they're implementing it and why they're doing it, and finding out, well, how can I prevent this, and how can I stop this from happening? And you don't seem to care too much about that.
That speaks to the culture though, bro. Like that that's been trained. Like my favorite line, one of my favorite movie lines is when DMX and Nas in Belly. When remember he was talking on, yo, we need to go to Africa. I've been reading, da 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 da. And Nas said, man, when the last time you read a book? He said, never. But that culture seeking knowledge has like totally been, from the music industry to the movies, like that's been dead in us since I was a kid, bro. Like, and I remember too, I'm so mad. I had to apologize to my pops a lot of times because I remember at 10 years old, 9 years old, he said, you reading? And I'd be like, man, I ain't got time for that. You reading? For 10 years straight. You reading? And high school and all of this, and I'm walking around dumb and taking everything backwards. Until one day I was probably about 21, and I read one of the books he told me, and I was wide open ever since. And I studied literally from, I'm gonna say 21 to about 35. I'm talking about everything: the miseducation of the Negro, autobiography of Malcolm X, Stokely Speaks, World's Great Men of Color, Volume 1. I'm halfway in Volume 2. Superman the Man, J.A. Rogers. Like, I went on that quest, like, and again, it changed me because first I got rid of the self-hate. I couldn't understand why I didn't love myself and why I could never find anything good or look at the bright side of things. I was always sad, sarcastic. And I realized that, okay, this stuff has been pushed on you since the womb when you came out. The cartoons you was looking at, the music you listened to, the movies you watch, the politics, even being in New York. I didn't think I could be a doctor or a lawyer because I didn't know anybody. And I used to walk past New York University, Columbia University, Hunter University every day. And I felt really like I can't go in there unless I'm cleaning the floors or I'm cooking the food. And I ain't finna do that. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get this money. And that was the biggest lie I told myself for 20 years straight. You know what I'm saying? And where I realized, like, yo, that, again, first, nobody put a gun in my head and made me do all that stupid stuff. And then second, man, I could have went to the library. I should have stayed in. I really should have. I was a nerd anyway. I should have just ran with that and locked in the library for 10 years straight. And I could have done whatever I wanted. I could have been an astronomer, a nuclear physicist. But the programming in my head from jump was, well, my father's a criminal, my mother's on drugs, and that's all I could do. And that right there is where we are now, even more so because we're more desensitized. Because again, now you don't have to walk to see the body. All you got to do is scroll. I was looking on X today, shows mine, I see 50 fights. So I know that if I'm looking at this stuff and I'm addicted to social media, imagine, and nobody is talking about learning, nobody's talking about self-knowledge. I'll even say this before I give up the mic. I've been told by multiple people lately that when you call yourself black in front of certain people, they begin to look at you like you're not human anymore. Like you give up your humanity by calling yourself black. And that bugged me out because they was like, yo, black is not, it's not even a color or something. So when you're calling it yourself black, that you're giving up your humanity, you're giving up your personage to where you're not nothing. So when a lot of times when you say that in front of a crowd, they begin to feel disrespect for you. And that was like, wow, I ain't know. And this has been the case for years.
It's unfortunate, man. You can't even say certain phrases or be yourself without there being some type of connotation being added to it. I literally go to and fro for 8 hours, 40 a week, working around individuals who plaster on a phony smile under my skin tone and on the opposite end. And I know that it's not because of them specifically, but it's because of something that was put in them. And me knowing, it's not like I'm blindfolded going into it. I know exactly where it's coming from. So because I understand it, I have the responsibility of responding in a way that's not going to be destructive, but also is going to force people to challenge the way that they see things. But I have to stand on certain principles in order for them to understand that there's a separation and a huge difference between what they were taught and what the reality is. So though I might not have had 20, 30 books under my catalog, I know enough to know that humans are just human. We're pretty much the same, just like Sydney was saying. You listen to country music. What do they talk about? Broken hearts, cheating. A lot of their music be ratchet too. It just doesn't sound ratchet. It just comes off, you know what I'm saying? Hell, techno, house music, soul, R&B, all of it is relative. It's just written in a certain script to meet you where you are in your own like backyard. So
low key, like 70 to 80% of poetry I see are also about love too.
Yeah.
Rock and roll too was a direct assault to the system.
And any other music, to be honest, is always a counterculture message.
speaking of message, I got one more clip that I would like to play for you. And seeing as how we have a bigger audience, matter of fact, shout out to everybody who just pulled in.
Bing, 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 bing.
I just want to give y'all a quick little recap of the Tucson massacre. This isn't the full.
I wanted to clarify. It's Tulsa. It's the Tulsa race.
Yeah. I don't know why I keep saying Tucson. Matter of fact, I'm gonna have to retitle this too. My bad. I be tired.
We get the point. We know.
Yeah. I don't know why I keep thinking of Tucson. Maybe I need to visit there or something for some reason. I don't know.
It is the Wild West.
Yeah. Let me bring this up on the screen, and we'll continue on what I thought. Is it this one? Yeah, it's this one right here. Okay.
21, Tulsa, Oklahoma was home to the Greenwood District, one of the wealthiest black communities in the United States, often called Black Wall Street. It featured dozens of black-owned businesses, including law offices, barbershops, restaurants, a hospital, and the Dreamland Theater. On May 30th, 1921, 19-year-old Dick Rowland, a black shoe shiner, entered an elevator in the Drexel Building, operated by 17-year-old Sarah Page. Rowland likely tripped as he stepped in and may have grabbed her arm to steady himself. Sarah Page screamed, and a nearby white clerk assumed an assault had occurred. Police were called, and Rowland was arrested the next day. However, Page never filed a formal complaint and later refused to testify. The case was dropped, but false rumors of an attack spread, triggering the riots. By May 31st, a white mob gathered at the courthouse. About 75 armed black men arrived to protect Rowland. Tensions rose. A shot was fired. Violence erupted. For the next 24 hours, white mobs looted and burned Greenwood. Eyewitnesses and later reports confirmed that private aircraft dropped homemade explosives, contributing to the fires. Greenwood's destruction included 35 city blocks covering nearly 90 acres, about the size of 66 football fields, over 1,200 homes, and dozens of businesses. The death toll of 300 people were mostly black. More than 10,000 black residents were left homeless. No one was ever convicted. Claims for property damage were largely denied. The event was largely omitted from American history education for decades. Today, the Tulsa Race Massacre is recognized as one of the most devastating acts of racial violence in U.S. history.
I can attest to that. I went to a private Catholic school, which was like literally the first black kid I saw come to my school was when I was in 8th grade. But they didn't teach us that in history. I don't think I learned it until high school or possibly even my own research.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't learn about the Tulsa massacre until my late 30s. I'm being honest. It was the first time I actually heard about it. They didn't teach that in school when I was in school. Not on this side of town. You know, and I don't think a lot of our history covered black history for real.
The same old stuff. And I want to shout out to the natives too, because all of the massacres that happened to them as well, you can't leave them out. But yeah, no, we learned the same old stuff, and they still learning it. You know, I'm in Florida, where old boy said the blacks wouldn't have had those jobs if they wasn't slaves. They wouldn't have those skills. Slavery was a benefit. Then he said, this is where being woke, the woke come to die. Then he said, when they said they are penalizing any university college that uses DEI or teaches about things like this because they feel like it's a threat, because when people teach this stuff, they're blaming white people and trying to make them feel sorry for what happened years ago.
Doesn't really surprise me. Not one bit.
And also people, especially those that want to deny that it was as bad as it was, a lot of people don't believe or understand that the consequences get passed down. Generational trauma continues to affect people to this day. There's actually a link between the violence that you experience in your ancestors' lifetimes and the prevalence of violence and anger issues in your own life, in your own family. The prevalence of the use of punishment on kids is more prevalent in colored cultures, because typically they're also the ones that were exposed to the most amount of violence throughout their lifetime. They're more likely to have been uprooted from their homes. They're more likely to have been exposed to physical violence and violence. They're also more likely to be exposed to like they're usually gonna end up in communities that have less resources, that have poor healthcare, that have poor outcomes. And so it really compounds, because if you're like, let's say your grandmother in the 1910s had her home taken from her, that's something that they had established in the 1800s and they'd worked for, they put their farm there and had a business and all this stuff, and it was taken from them. It's going to take generations for them to regain what they lost. And given how everything has skyrocketed in prices over the 19th century, that's almost impossible. If you lost thousands or millions of today's money back then, like, that would be almost impossible to get back because of all of the limitations that are put on you. You don't have access to the same jobs for a very, very long time. You don't have access. Sometimes they wouldn't even lease to you if you were a certain color, because they'd be like, oh, well, we want this certain group in this community, or like they would just give you other reasons why you couldn't be there. A lot of the racism was under the surface. Like, it wasn't, a lot of people also think that racism is just like people yelling slurs at you on the street and stuff like that. But it goes so much deeper than that. It's side eyes whenever you go into stores, and it's being like, people might want to take payment first before you are able to even go into a store, because they're like, they might steal. There's so many different ways people will treat you and even make you feel, just vibes and how they talk to you, condescending and everything. If you don't live the life or investigate what it's actually like from the people that go through it, I can understand how it would be hard to understand. But that's also why it's so important to not separate groups. Segregation added to the problem because it forced people apart. And so they went decades or generations sometimes without being exposed to those communities at all. So if you haven't met very many Black individuals in your 30 year or 60 years of life, and you were exposed to parents that also were the same way and grandparents that were the same way, you're probably going to have some very deep-seated biases. So yeah, it's a lot more deep and nuanced than people would expect, I think.
Which would explain why we have gang cultures. It explains why we have this divide between men and women constantly fighting over positions instead of working together as a unit. It explains the domestic violence, the drugs, the alcohol, the overconsumption of just pretty much anything that will bring you high cholesterol or any type of sickness to your body. I mean, when you say they separated, it was purposeful. It was absolutely purposeful, just for this alone. It's almost like you're saying, kill yourself.
Native American reservations, particularly ones in Oklahoma, have the lowest life expectancy of any group of people in the United States. Their life expectancy is 50. They literally only have like gas stations or tiny little like convenience marts in those areas, because the way they establish the land or whatever, brand name places aren't allowed to establish themselves in reservations. And so they're literally food deserts, and they don't have access to anything but like what you'd find in a convenience store, like a gas station convenience store. So yeah, that's also what you're saying.
I mean, even what we're doing right now is dangerous, because they said once you step out and start speaking all that, Huey Newton and Stokely Carmichael called it revolutionary suicide. But once you begin to step out and act on these things that you know, and to change those things, you ostracize yourself, you become an outcast. You outcast yourself from society. Because this is not stuff. And Sydney, I can speak to what you just said, because last year we had the blessing to go camping in the Grand Canyon. And during that time, we had drove through Arizona and through some parts of Utah, through Navajo Nation. And it was just like the hood. Like, you had the millionaire houses, but then for the next 5 miles, literally like right across the road, abject poverty, third world poverty, in fact. And they had the gas stations, you know what I'm saying? And you could just see the people struggling, like real bad. And I was like, dog, like,
trailer parks everywhere.
Right. And you think, a lot of times the biggest thing from New York was like, it's just us. Most people feel like they're alone, but it's like, nah, this is the hood. The one thing that I do understand, though, the resilience and the group think and the group activity has systematically been broken out of Americans of African descent. I would say, conspiracy me would say more than any other culture. Because I talk to people all the time about this stuff, and my uncle said, one time, he said, it's because we've been stepped on so long, why would we take our foot off your neck? And then, for capitalism to thrive, we also need someone to stay on the bottom. So even now, we have all this knowledge and all of that, but you can't really get two people to go in the same direction, or definitely to pool resources. Like we don't have that. And it's wild because Jamaicans do it, Mexicans do it. They pool their resources. They stay 9-10 to a 2-3 bedroom house.
Nigerians are also extraordinarily resourceful like that. They usually will come to countries that are more well off. They get their degrees, and then they'll come back and they'll help their families also get ahead.
Yes, right. Send their kids to college. And here we go. Our family can't even stay together. We'll kill each other if we stay together too long, just the way. And then that, like you said, those trauma bonds and that trauma is so ingrained that we can't even get over it because of things that happened 10, 20 years ago. We can't. And then also now, to a certain extent, we've become entitled, because of what I'm watching, there's a lot of people are treated, especially like, they treat their parents like they owe them. And it's gotten to where with all of this knowledge, we are stuck at a complete standstill, and it's gotten to the point to where you can come in the fold if you're willing to do this. If you're not, you might as well stay out there and get used to it.
And the sad thing is, we're slipping more towards it's not even racism anymore. It's just going to be the poor against the wealthiest class. Because right now, the wealthiest class is trying to eke everything they possibly can out of us. Kind of a tiny tangent. Part of the problem with all these communities that are starting to rely on like trailers and manufactured homes because they can't afford to get into housing, actual housing, is all of these places that people are able to live. Like the communities that are the most disadvantaged tend to be in areas where they also have really severe storms, and trailer parks are not safe. Even in an F1 tornado, they can get destroyed. And that's another way that they get affected generationally, because every summer they could lose their entire home, all their stuff, their everything. So it adds up over time. It's very much cumulative. So if your grandparents struggled, you are going to have to work harder to get ahead, even if there is that generational gap.
It's all systematic. But look, what was I about? It was something that I wanted to respond to. The opening Pandora's box part. I'm all for it. Doesn't really bother me. I've been an outcast all my life, so it really fits me pretty well. Which is why I do this in the first place. Because you can't tell me nothing, because I ain't really worried about fitting in with anybody. We got the information. We have people who discuss these things on a frequent basis. It's up to you whether or not you want to invest in it or not. Most of us are halfway through our life, and we're fortunate to be here right now. You know, there's people losing their life at 5 years old, 6 months, years, and to even assume that you got all this time in the world to be reckless and random is wild to me. Black Wall Street is no different than the park in New York. They just buried it and renamed it something else. And I said this before, there's a lot of cities that were inhabited by Black people. And right now, it doesn't look like, as a whole, we have the same mindset. Right now, it seems as if it's every man for themselves. Nobody is really looking out for the other person. There's a huge disarray of who do I side with, who do I blame for this happening, who do I blame for that happening, but not a lot of solutions. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say you can deprogram somebody who grew up hating a specific type of person. What I am saying is you don't have to become them in the process of being around it on a regular basis. Like Jesus dealt with this. What makes you think you're not going to deal with it? He then got spat on. He got discriminated against. He done got lied on, backstabbed. He's Everything that we deal with, he already dealt with, and then some. So it's like at this point, all right, what do we do now, Rob? What do we do now, Sydney? You know,
Raise our children so they don't do that. That's right. Like, unfortunately, there are some people that it is so ingrained. They just have to, that generation has to pass. But we have to make sure that the future generations don't adopt those same ideals. I also wanted to mention, I completely forgot. For the viewers that don't know, my husband is Black. His family is Black. He has 9 aunts and uncles, and they have lived all over the U.S. because they were Navy. They actually had their house burned down once in one of the, I think it was Midwestern community, but it was for race reasons. They didn't want them in the neighborhood, and so they purposely burned their home. I think my husband was actually 2 years old when that happened. It was in 1997. And that's just to show it still happens. I mean, as we just saw, we had another, I don't know if it was racially motivated this time with or I think it was more anti-Semitic or something. I'd have to look again, but we're still having these problems. I mentioned it earlier in the stream, but Lahaina and I forgot the name again. The one that was next to the Palisade, the Eaton fire. Both of those communities and Paradise are all experiencing a similar issue. The Eaton fire is a big community in Los Angeles, and they were very multi-generational. Some of them have lived there like 60 years, 70 years. Sometimes I think one family was there for like 120 years or something. But they're all Black communities. And now that Eaton fire has destroyed most of the community, they're priced out and they can't move back in. And the people that are able to move back in are largely white. So they got pushed out of their community because of this wildfire. And some of them ended up homeless. This is just another contribution, like when all these natural disasters that we experience, unfortunately, actually reinforce racism. And so that's why we really have to fix the system and make sure the kids don't grow into this, because we have to we have to root out the people that support that ideology and not allow them to be in positions of decision making.
So just to put some context, we got Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921, Rosewood, Florida, 1923, Ocoee, Florida, 1920, Colfax, 1873, that was Louisiana, Memphis, Tennessee, 1866, New Orleans Massacre, 1866, Elaine Massacre, Arkansas, 1919, Wilmington Massacre, 1898. A couple years ago, we had the one in Buffalo, where the guy went and shot up the store. Then, not even just them down here, we had the LGBT bar where the guy shot up the place in Orlando. There was one in Colorado Springs, I think a couple years ago. So when we doing this, so you said, how do we stop this and help this right now? First, Sydney, you're absolutely right. Teach the kids. I think also, and you're absolutely right, not giving these people positions of power. I would piggyback on your answer to say we have to learn how to pool our resources in ways that we're able to protect ourselves and protect each other from things like this. Weed that kind of stuff out. Got to get it back in the schools, the real history, and begin to teach these, or back in the houses, in people's personal houses where they're learning about this, and not in a way to make anyone feel bad, just to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself. And then also, we have to stop giving the wrong people voices, which is what I said, but what I mean, like, this guy in his cabinet, because he works for people, right, in the government. He works for whoever lobby behind him, put the money behind him. He's a puppet, doesn't necessarily even have power, but that office, they should not be given voices. We should not be giving voices to people who do this rhetoric. We should not be celebrating these people on a regular basis. They should be muted. You did something like that to where, because everybody deserves a second chance, right? So I'm not casting the net that wide to where it's just everybody should be muted. And if you were programmed to this type of stuff and you've changed and your actions show that you're not doing this type of stuff anymore and you don't want to harm anyone, then you should be given a second chance. But people like this, they should be muted. They shouldn't even have our time. And then the conspiracy me, I'm for tearing up the Constitution, to be honest with you, and rewriting it. Because clearly, and like I said, this is dangerous even for me, but this, it was not inclusive from the beginning. It did not include everyone. It was not written to represent anyone, only the business owners. So with that right there, I think that entire thing needs to be rewritten, even down to the Star Spangled Banner, because we know what that entails. We know the verse that's missing on that. You know what I'm saying? And these things need to be exposed, and we need to have a truly representative body of people to come together and find out how to make this thing to all inclusive, to where, if nothing else, everybody really has a fair shot at a good education. They have their rights intact, and no one can violate their rights.
This might be a little bit of a, I don't know, some people might not like it, but I think also another thing is obviously age appropriately, but we need to expose people to the actual images of these events. People need to understand what actually happened, because especially with the way the internet has kind of sanitized everything and blocks out pictures and blurs everything, people, and also like back in the 1900s and stuff, people experienced dead bodies and everything. Like they experienced a lot more than we see today. Like we're very sheltered and hidden. Like even if somebody's sick and it needs paramedics or something, like the paramedics gather around and doesn't even let the family see until the person's like kind of cleaned up and fixed up and stuff like that. So we don't even get the chance to understand what can happen to people, like the horrific things that average normal families have been exposed to, and has been squashed and hidden and painted over. And we really, really need to expose the true history of what people have gone through. And in Europe, they don't allow people to take down, or certain countries in Europe, they don't allow people to take down like dictator statues or like statues of those types of people, because they want it there as a way to educate and the way to remember what happened. There's a way to show off history without condoning it. And I think that's what we need to figure out how to do, is how to express what actually happened realistically to these communities, be honest with how we affected those communities. And then we need to move forward with how we can fix it together in a way that actually builds communities and uplifts everybody, and not just the people that can afford to.
For starters, let's get rid of the censorship. There's some of these BS community guidelines that they have on these apps, because for one, you don't really honor them anyway. So what's the point of having them? I was watching the TikTok a few minutes before the stream, the young lady was trying to cover this in particular, and they gave her a warning. They said the next time you post something like this, it's going to be a problem. But I don't understand. She wasn't showing bodies. She wasn't showing people getting burnt alive or hanging or nothing like that. But if you go to Google, then you type it in, it's there, it's available. You can see whatever you want on Google. So what's the problem with having it on YouTube or having it on Twitter? Matter of fact, Twitter is probably still one of the most unadulterated places you can see stuff like that to a certain extent.
I feel like they should give people the option to be like, I want this to be blurred out, or no, I don't want to blur out my videos. And so when something is tagged as like, oh, this might be sensitive or whatever, then if you have it so you blur it, then they'll blur it for you. But then if you don't want it, then it can still be there. Because I've hated that. I really hated that shift, because that was how I learned about things. That's how I understood disasters and what actually happened and what you could and honestly, a lot of people avoid seeing those images because the visceral reaction can be really uncomfortable, especially because people don't want to see things that have happened to people that expose parts of the body that are not supposed to be out in the open. And so it can be very jarring to see that. But I really think that desensitization has made everything kind of worse, because we don't actually understand how people have been hurt. And when you don't understand how people have been hurt, it's much easier to blow it off and be like, wasn't that bad? What? A couple people lost their homes, some people died. Like, that happens to everyone. But when you ignore the fact that people are systematically killed or systematically assaulted or in other things, you become more realistic and reverent towards other people, because you understand, okay, that like, I can understand how that's affecting you, and you understand and have compassion and empathy.
Yeah, two things come to mind. Well, first, just on the side note, I used to make heat press T-shirts years ago, and I was making things like that to promote Black history, and a lot of the images that I was using on the shirts is wild, because they told me that nobody would ever wear it, and clearly I don't do it anymore. I went out of business because my ideas. I had my problem was they was like, yo, you got to give them Tony the Tiger wearing a gold chain with a thing of money, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that. You got to give them a $5 T-shirt. That's what they want. And I probably should have done. I probably would have stayed in business. But the images that I was putting on there were horrific. And it was of people hanging. It was of people being set on fire. It was all of this. And I made it like news magazines on the shirts. And nobody would wear it. And it's funny that today, this is all of the images that I'm seeing being fed. And I'm like, yo, I was ahead of my time. I shouldn't have quit. And then two, when you talk about desensitization, I think about Cam's line in Paid in Full. We say, yo, people get shot every day, B, you be all right. It's just like, yo. It's like, yo, to a certain extent, we far gone. And it's wild. Sydney, you're absolutely right, because it's not just cultural. I think a lot of things are designed to make it look like it's the people of color that are going through it. But this is happening in every single community. It's just not being promoted like that. So yeah, we definitely gotta band together and find commonalities and find ways, because another thing that I'm thinking about is that they said 99% of the time when the oppressed person gets in the position of the oppressor, they begin to take on the thoughts and ways of their oppressor. They begin to feel sympathetic towards them, and then they begin to well, if I did it, everybody else could do it. And you could pull up your bootstraps, and it's just like, you know what? Some people they didn't have boots in the beginning. They didn't have laces in the beginning, so you cannot ask these people to pull up their bootstraps when they was born with none. And we have to be careful of that, because at the end of the day, like, sometimes I think like, okay, well, what would you do? And the only thing that I could think of right now, that if I had to make my home smaller so that nobody wanted to rob it, I think I would. And in attempting to be a businessman right now, that's killing me, because I want to share. Like, I've even had people tell me, like, if you get rich, we're gonna manage it because you're gonna give it away. You're going, and I've been told this, because at the end of the day, I don't want to see nobody hungry. I don't want to see nobody without. I remember those days vivid. And when I see people, I automatically have this sympathy, especially if they're struggling, to where it's like, oh, like, even if they put it on themselves, I'm still in my head like, man, it's got to be something. Something forced them to go that way. Like we talked about last week with people being homeless, super intelligent. Something in their life caused them to be on that corner, in that train station, in that bank area. And I have a sympathy for them, because I remember those days, and if I would give so much a lot of times that I forget about myself. I overexhaust myself, because I just want people to have it. So we gotta, even myself, I have to find ways to give within reason, and I also have to know when to say no. That was a big problem I had for years too. So, once we are able to cross those boundaries and open ourselves up and express ourselves, I think that we'll grow. And then we got to put some laws, because I think the reason why this stuff is still happening, because the laws haven't been changed. To be honest, the conspiracy those laws that are allowing this stuff have yet to be changed, from the amendments up till now, and even to the point where we're watching people break the laws flat out that's supposed to be set to bring about organization. And that's a problem, because now it becomes a free-for-all, because it's like, hey, you ain't do it, so why you ain't found that up? This guy is in office right now, he ain't have to do all of this and all of that, he even go to jail. You know what I'm saying? And people be like, well, he'll go when he's out of there. No, the damage is done. And I wouldn't wish jail on nobody. I'm not saying that's the right thing, but what I'm saying is that shouldn't have even been allowed. That shouldn't even been fathomable. But then that shows us again, the laws are made to be broken, and we see who gets to break them. So I wanted to say that I went around a long way, is that when we have to make sure that when we get these things out of place, that we don't repeat those things. Like, we don't become those people, or we don't you get that power, you don't become corrupted by it and begin to do those same things that has been done.
Also, just one thing, from the other side too, there is a bit of, I wouldn't say racism, because it's not really racism. It's more like incredulity. Like, I've noticed there's a lot of distrust with the colored communities and the other disadvantaged communities, like the LGBT community. They're very hesitant to allow white cisgender individuals into their communities, because they're afraid of what types of ideologies they could carry. And so I think there is a level, like, there might need to be I don't know what to call it, but there needs to be something that pushes us back together and gives us the space to vent out all of these things that we've been holding, so we can find the common ground again. because I think we're so stuck in our groups that there isn't very much cohesion of goals yet. I think we're finally getting to that because of everything that's happening with the country. So I'm hoping we're going to start seeing that. But I still think we have work to do, for sure.
Give us more truth. Give us more rawness, more transparency. No more fear mongering.
Honesty.
Exactly. Please, 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 please. Just stop. Just stop. I mean,
laws, man, get them laws out of here. A lot of those laws are still allowing, like even a couple years ago, they said the military was still desegregated. We know that in the public school funding, there's discrimination in the public school funding. There's 6 students that are from Florida A&M University that sued the Florida state government for discrimination in funding to the tune of $1 billion, and they were told to go back and rewrite their proposal because they could not find any hints of desegregation, and all you got to do is go to both campuses and you see everything. So we got a lot of times, because like we could talk, but until they change those laws, then, and even the lynching laws, I realize a lot of times why they don't really change that is because they did that in Europe. They did that to each other. Like that's what they was doing. So at the end of the day, we got an anti-lynching law for everybody but black people, right? But to ultimately get rid of it is something that's in their culture that they've been doing since the Wild West. You're watching these movies, Westerns and all of that. This is what they was doing from Europe to here. So I feel like we gotta find all of those laws and band together and get rid of them and rewrite them to where they're all inclusive. And then also too, we gotta spread some resources, man. Because a lot of this stuff is going on now because people don't have time to think. They ain't got time to think. Like you scrolling, like you said, Sydney, you get desensitized when you're looking at this stuff and you can't do nothing about it. And that's where we at right now. When you got to work and worry about this and worry about that, and you distracted, something's breaking down all the time, you don't have time to sit back and process that, see how to actually fight this stuff. So we got to definitely get this resource to where when people should be paid living wages. You shouldn't have to you shouldn't have to have a roommate in New York City when you make 6 figures, or in a rural community. You shouldn't have to wait till you 90 years old to make 6 figures, where you could just afford to be able to do things for yourself and your family that will expand your knowledge and your well-being. And this is a travesty to where, like I said, it costs you more to go to work than to not work like this. And they've been getting away with this so long. And again, that comes from those laws that haven't been changed. I'm a stickler for that.
I'm gonna leave it at this. They don't honor biblical instruction. So what makes you think they're gonna honor worldly instruction? That's what it boils down to ultimately for me. When you don't have, so this is how I look at it. If you don't have biblical doctrine, whatever your religion is, whatever you believe in, that's for you. But if you don't have the spiritual aspect in you, everything else is going to reflect that. You are what you create or what you invite in. And there's a reason why there's scripture. There's a reason why there's a whole Bible or Quran or whatever. There's a reason for it. I personally am a Christian. I'm not the greatest one, but I've read enough to understand that there's a purpose for it and why it's necessary for us to have it. And without it, how can you really get to the point where you see what's going on and you want to do something about it? Whether it's in your home or outside your home, in your neighborhood.
Speaking of that, real quick too, I think we need to teach all of those doctrines. The kids need to learn about Buddhism. They need to learn about Catholicism. They need to learn about the Quran. They need to learn about the Bible in a way to where they're taught to ask questions. Because the one thing that I realize, I'm 50% to 3/4 in my Quran right now. It's the same story, and that's been tripping me out crazy because they have Abraham, they even acknowledge Jesus. They just don't acknowledge him as a person that died and came back. But
the Jewish Bible is too.
Exactly, and I'm sitting here like people will kill each other right now over their prophet, and it's the same story. Like that trips me out. And then I was talking to my lady too the other day about Gaza and how those people are starving. And I'm sitting here like those people are praying 5 times a day. Some of them, some of them praying. We are praying through these books, but we starving. So even with that, you're absolutely right, Deep. But we got to teach it within reason to where, okay, we're learning this stuff, but we still have to act as humans to be able to offset this stuff. Now, you know what I mean? We gotta. I don't care if you Muslim, if you Buddhist, if you Christian, if you Catholic. If we hungry, then we need to do something to where we ain't hungry. If you in danger, we need to do something. I don't care your skin color. I don't care what language you speak. We got to get right. We're not gonna be sitting here struggling because, to my knowledge, after studying all of those things a little bit in Catholicism, a little bit of Buddhism, dibbling dabbling, the higher power or the power, whatever it is, don't want that to happen to us. I haven't read any book to where we should be struggling like this. So we have to get out of man's interpretation and realize that, you know what, like you said, Sydney, earlier, Deep, you said, man, we the same people. And if it shouldn't be like this for me, then it shouldn't be like that for you. And definitely not for our children.
And that's a whole fact. Love this conversation from start to finish. And to the people that's watching, rewind it, go back to the beginning, get a recap. Also, I encourage you to check out the actual, I should have posted it here. I'll make sure I put the link in the description box of the reaction I did to the actual documentary. I'm going to fix the title once the stream is done so nobody's confused with Tucson and Tulsa. Sydney, you pretty much, you showed up, and I appreciate your perspective and your point of view on this. You absolutely smashed it. This is exactly what I expected. No,
it's one of my heart issues. I've always been very passionate. I could even say racism showed up as a passion of mine before environmentalism. Environmentalism was more like later middle school to high school, once I started to understand what was happening. But I've always been deeply bothered by the fact that people, because as I said, I got into history very early. So at 7, 8, 9, I knew that people had died because of, I knew about slavery. I knew about these things. And it was very bothersome. And I always wanted to, as I started to get into psychology, I always wanted to understand why people are like this. So yeah, it's a very important issue to me. So I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm glad we had it. And it's so necessary right now. We need to be very candid about what's actually happening, so we can be honest about how we're going to actually proceed with this. Because I think it's been swept under the rug far, far too long.
Definitely. Shout outs to you. Shout outs to Rob, man. Y'all told me something for sure. Shout out to everybody who pulled up tonight for the stream. I appreciate the repost for the shares. Do me a solid. Tap into the YouTube channel. Link is in the bio. We live every day. Open mic on Friday. Yeah, this is about to be a very long week. Tomorrow is going to be a good one too. So make sure you tap in. Same time, same place. 7 p.m. Eastern. We about to get up out of here. But enjoy the rest of your night. Have a blessed week. Drive safe. And yeah, man, if you got any topics, anything, any questions for the panel, shoot me a DM or something like that. I'll bring it to the table and we'll cover it if it's worth talking about. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, enjoy the rest of your night. We out.